Alright, guys. Hello. Welcome back. I'm that bored guy again. I know, I'm just... Sorry. If I set my camera... Well, it's actually my phone. In the way that records me best, which is not this way. I have to unplug it, and then by the time I'm done, it dies. And I can't afford that. So, I'm gonna be doing a little reading again, like I did yesterday. Here, let me face you. I'll put my glasses on. Alright. That's much better. Okay, I'm gonna, that's best. I'm gonna continue reading from basically where I left off. After letting cameras flash wildly for a few moments, Bruce made his way towards the hall's entrance. Other guests mingled at the top of the stairs. Members of Gotham City's upper class, the occasional council member, clusters of admirers. Bruce found himself categorizing everyone in the crowd. It was a survival skill he learned since his parents' deaths. There were the people who'd invite him to dinner only in an attempt to get gossip out of him, the people willing to betray friends in order to become his, the occasional wealthy classmate who'd spread lies about him of bitter envy, the ones who'd do anything to get a date with him and then share the details with the rags the next morning. But on the surface, he kept his cool, greeting everyone politely. Only a few more steps until he'd reached the entrance. All he had to do was make it inside, and then he could find Bruce! A familiar voice. I'm not going to try to do voices. It's actually a woman's voice, so I'm trying to just read. A familiar voice cut above the chaos. Bruce looked up to where a girl was standing on tiptoe and waving at him from the top of the stairs. Dark hair skimmed her shoulders, and the hall's floor lights highlighted her brown skin and the round curve of her hips. There was glitter woven into the fabric of her dress, shimmering silver as she moved. "Hey!" she called. "Over here!" Bruce's careful demeanor dissolved in relief. Diane Garcia. Category genuine. As he reached her, she instinctively turned her back on the crowd, struck behind the velvet rope. Excuse me. Oh. Struck behind the velvet rope at the bottom of the stairs in an attempt to shield him from the flashing cameras. "Fashionably late on your birthday?" she said with a grin. He gave her a grateful wink and leaned down closer to her ear. "Always." "This benefit is epic," she went on. "I think you might set a new record for how much money it'll raise." "Thank God," he replied, throwing an arm around her neck. "Otherwise, I'd have to put up with all the cameras down there for nothing." She laughed. This was the girl who had once punched a tooth out of a kid for harassing her friends, who had memorized the entire first chapter of A Tale of Two Cities in senior year English to win a bet, and who could spend an hour staring at a menu only to order the same burger she always got. Now Diane shoved him in an affectionate protest, grabbed his arm, and led him through the open doors of the hall, leaving the paparazzi behind. One moment. To pause. One momento. I'll go back to it. I just felt like stopping for a moment. I mean, for the most part, I don't know. It's not the worst book I've ever read, but it's not that great. And probably most of you don't think it's that great. Though, like, there's 5 of you. And maybe the occasional random stranger. So I'm going to take a pause. Oh no, I didn't read that much. I will get back to it, I promise. I just wanted to suck on some cough drops. And just bitch and talk. Because that's what this channel is all about. It's just me talking and doing whatever I feel. Because I'm not a YouTuber. Got some terrible news. It's also good news because it's for the best that they stay closed. But my real job, my real deal that I do when I'm not sitting in this little room worried my actual job, I work at like a lot of people here in Orlando. Technically I'm in Winter Garden, but Orlando. I work in the theme parks. I work for a company that does souvenir photos. And the park we're located in, we will be closed at current up until the 19th of April. So I already got unemployment set up and all that. That's not the best, but hopefully it doesn't go too much past that. You know, you gotta remain as optimistic as possible. I gotta go get supplies tomorrow. I might do one of my BS reviews. I'm gonna continue reading this book in a little bit. I just wanted to gab. It feels like I'm talking to somebody, and that's much better. So, yeah, that's what's going on with me. Inside, the lighting was dim, and atmospheric blue, and chandeliers hung from the high ceilings, glittering bright silver and white. Ice sculptures and spreads of food covered long banquet tables, while another table was lined with rows of auction items, all of them all all trembling slightly from the beat of the music. I thought you had a college interview today, he said over the noise as Diane swiped a lemon tart from one of the dessert tables. Not that I'm complaining about you being here, of course. It was earlier, Diane replied through a mouthful of pastry. It's okay. My Lala needed me home in the afternoon to pick up my brother, and besides, I couldn't bear the thought of robbing you of my company tonight. She leaned in, her voice dropping to an ominous whisper. That was my way of saying I didn't get you anything. Nothing at all? Bruce put a hand over his heart in mock pain. You wound me. If you'd like, I could always bake you a cake. Please don't. The last time Diane had attempted to make cookies, she'd set Bruce's kitchen on fire, and they'd spend the next hour hiding the scorched kitchen drapes so that Alfred wouldn't know. Diane squeezed his arm once. You'll just have to settle for diner food tonight then. Years ago, Bruce, Harvey, and Diane had all agreed to forego presents in exchange for an annual date at their favorite local diner. It would be where they'd meet up tonight, too, after the benefit ended, and Bruce could shed the billionaire and just be a boy on the cusp of graduating from high school, getting teased by two of his best friends over fat burgers and thick milkshakes. He smiled in anticipation of the thought. Well, he asked Diane, how'd the interview go? The interviewer didn't faint in horror at my answer, so I'm going out on a limb to say it went well, she shrugged. And that was Diane's way of saying she aced it, just like she aced everything else in life. Bruce had come to recognize her shrug, whether she tried to downplay an achievement, getting a perfect score on her entrance exams, being admitted to every university she applied to, and speaking as third class valedictorian at graduation next month. Congratulations, he said, although you've probably already heard that from Harvey. She smiled. All Harvey's done tonight is beg me not to leave him alone on the dance floor. You know how much his two left feet love to dance. Bruce laughed. Isn't he alone on the dance floor right now? Oh, he can survive for 2 minutes. The music grew louder and louder as they neared the dance floor until finally they stepped through a set of double doors and onto a balcony that overlooked a packed space where the music shook the floors. A haze of mist hugged the ground level. On the stage below was an elaborate stand behind which stood a DJ bobbing his head in time with the beat. Behind him, an enormous screen stretched from floor to ceiling and played a series of moving, flashing patterns. Diane cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted down at the crowd, "He's here!" An enormous cheer exploded from the dance floor, drowning out even the music. Bruce looked on as the crowd's roar of "Happy Birthday" filled the room. He smiled and waved, and as he did, the DJ sped up the track. Then the DJ dropped the beat hard, and the crowd became a sea of pumping limbs. Bruce let the pounding music fill his senses, and whatever unease he had felt now faded. Diane led him down the stairs and into the mass of guests. As he greeted one person after another, pausing to take selfies with some, he lost Diane in a tangle of bodies, until all he could see was a blur of familiar and strange faces, every outline in slices of neon and darkness. There she is. Diane had reached Harvey Dent, who looked chalky under the nightclub lights as he tried his best to move with the beat. Bruce smiled at the sight, then started making his way across the dance floor towards them. They waved him over. "Bruce!" He turned at the voice, but before he could even reply, somebody was clapping him hard on the shoulder. A face came into focus, grinning harshly with white teeth even whiter against his pale face. "Hey, happy birthday, man!" Richard Price, the son of Gotham's current mayor. Bruce blinked in surprise. It had been months since they last talked, but Richard had already grown a few inches taller, so that Bruce had to look up slightly to meet the other boy's gaze. "Hey," he replied, returning Richard's embrace. "I didn't think you'd come." "And miss your shindig?" "Never," Richard replied. "My dad's here out in the auction hall anyways. He never missed any of your mom's benefits, and he won't do it now." Bruce nodded warily. They had once been best friends. They lived at opposite ends of the same neighborhood of exclusive estates, had attended the same middle school and the same parties, and even taken kickboxing classes at the same gym. They'd played video games in Bruce's theater room, laughing themselves silly until their stomachs hurt. Oh my God. My eyes. Stomachs hurt. Even now, Bruce felt a pang of the memory. But things had changed as they grew older, and Richard had gradually fallen into a specific category of his own, the kind of friend who called you only when he needed something from you. Bruce wondered what it would be tonight. Hey, Richard said now, his eyes darting to one side. He kept his hand on Bruce's shoulder. He gestured up to the exit. Can I talk with you somewhere just for a second? Sure. Bruce's ears rang as they headed off the dance floor and into a quieter hall. There, Richard turned around and looked at Bruce with an eager grin. In spite of himself, Bruce could feel his spirits lift at the expression. It was the same grin Richard used to give him when they were kids, and Richard had found something exciting that he had to share. Maybe he really was here just to celebrate Bruce's birthday. Richard stepped closer and lowered his voice. Look, he said, my dad's been on my case. He keeps asking me if I've got an internship lined up for the summer. Can you help me out? Bruce's moment of hope flickered out, replaced by a familiar, sinking feeling of disappointment. Richard needed something again. I could recommend you to Lucius Fox, he started to say. Wayne Tech is looking for interns. Richard shook his head. No. I mean, I don't actually want to be at the internship. Just, put in a word for me with my dad. Tell him I'm doing stuff at Wayne Tech this summer, and let me into the building a couple of times. Bruce frowned at him. You mean help you fake that you're at the internship and just so that your dad won't bother you anymore? Richard gave him a half-hearted nudge. It's the last summer before college starts. I don't want to spend it working. Yeah, you know how it is, Wayne, right? Just tell my dad I'm working with Lucius. It won't be a big deal. And how are you going to keep it up? I told you, let me into Wayne Tech every now and then. Take a photo of me in the lobby or something. It's all my dad needs to see. I don't know, man. Lucius will tell your dad the truth if he gets wind of it. Well, come on, Bruce. For old time's sake. Richard's grin was still on as he reached to shake Bruce's shoulder once. It's your company, isn't it? You're gonna let that nerd tell you what to do? Bruce bristled. Richard had fawned all over Lucius when he first met him. I'm not covering for you. If you want to tell your dad you're interning at Wayne Tech, you'll have to actually do the internship. Richard made an annoyed sound in his throat. What's it to you? Why are you insisting? Oh, God. All you have to do is mention it once or twice to my dad. It's not like it'll cost you anything. Bruce shook his head. When they were younger, Richard would show up unannounced at his front gate, talking breathlessly over the intercom, holding the latest game or newest set of action figures. At some point, hangouts shifted from debates about their favorite movies to at some point their hangouts shifted from debates about their favorite movies where to requests of Richard to copy Bruce's homework, or for Bruce to finish their group projects on his own, or put in a good word for him for jobs. And when had he changed? Bruce couldn't understand when or why it had all gone wrong. I can't. I'm sorry. At that, Richard's eyes seemed to shudder. He searched Bruce's gaze as if expecting a different answer, but when it didn't come, he grimaced and shoved his hands into his pockets. Yeah, whatever, he muttered, stepping around Bruce to head back down the hall. I see how it is. You turn 18 and get the keys to your empire and suddenly you're too good to help out your friends. Richard. The other boy paused to look over his shoulder. Bruce stared at him for a moment. If you hadn't wanted my help, would you have come to the party tonight? There was a pause, and Bruce knew the answer was no. Richard just shrugged at him and turned around and continued down the hall without answering. Bruce stood there for a moment alone, listening to the pounding music coming from inside. He felt a sudden rush of not belonging here, not even at his own event. He pictured the crowd of his classmates and friends on the dance floor and wondered if aside from Diane and Harvey, any of them would be here if he weren't for his family name. The paparazzi outside wouldn't, that's for sure. If you were just Bruce Wayne, the boy next door, would anyone care? Instead of heading back to the dance floor, Bruce made his way down the hall and through the nondescript door that led outside. He walked around the building until he reached the front entrance, where the cameras had already gotten what they wanted from the Aston Martin and were now clustered at the top of the stairs waiting for special guests to enter or leave unnoticed. Bruce reached the car and got in. One of the bodyguards watching the paparazzi at the entrance spotted him right as he shut the car door and revved the engine. Mr. Wayne, sir, the man said, but Bruce gave him a terse nod. Through the window, he could see some of the paparazzi turn in his direction and realize that he was leaving. Their eyes widened and their chatter morphed into shouts, but Bruce slammed his foot down on the gas pedal before anyone could reach him. In the rear view mirror, the hall shrank quickly. Maybe it was rude of him to leave his benefits so soon and get some time alone from everyone. Wanted his time for themselves, but he didn't slow down. He didn't look back. We're going to take another little pause. Oh. And I'm going to color for a little bit. This is slowly becoming my favorite thing to do. Whoa. Green. See. See green for the eyes. This is my finish up. Alright. Alright. No. Why? Why not? Okay. Oh. Oh, got a little on the face. But we're not gonna worry about that. Little imperfection, never hurt anybody. I guess unless that imperfection was a weakened immune system. Yeah, I think most of us will be okay. And I think most of us will come out unscathed. But really, we shouldn't. We should come out of this wanting to do more, wanting to be better, wanting to change the world, make it a better place. Realize that normal wasn't good for the most. there's a lot of people for whom, a lot of people out there just want to return to normal. I want to return to routine, but I don't want to return to normal. I want to not be cooped up in one spot and worried about the elders of my friends and family and community, but, or, but I don't want to return to normal, really. No, really. I want to build a better world. Legit, straight up, better. One that doesn't turn to religion or mysticism or bullshit. One where science is funded at least well enough to deal with problems better, to be faster, to be more decisive. Not powered by greed. Because you know what? That isn't. We don't form. The reason we formed communities isn't. Is proof. Should be proof to you that just the fact that you formed a community, that you formed a society. Should prove to you logically, why would we do that? Why would we form groups and societies if the idea wasn't to take care of each other? If that wasn't our nature? That is our nature. That's self-evident. It's not greed. Not really. Oh, yeah. The sea green. That's actually the one I wanted. How do you like that? Dig that. That's my finish. This one, yellow green, that's gonna be my finish. Then I'm gonna do the face and ears with this. Yep. No. I'm okay with it. this is fun. I hope you guys have your own coloring books. You should go out and buy some. Dollar General has some great ones. This really brings me some kind of weird peace. By the way, the results are not what I wanted. They're actually kind of cool. Oh, I gotta do the ears. Huh, that's gonna be a... Alright. Now, okay. That looks cool. He looks cool. Now, yep. Man, oh. like him. I like him. Alright. Green Lion finished. Oh, that feels awesome. Yeah. No, he looks awesome. Oh, I do. All right. For real. He's done. He is done. Done, 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 done. Oh no. I think I might try one of the other coloring books. I don't know. I really don't want to have to color a specific way, you know. Follow anyone else's muse but my own. Well, it does have the sharpener. Alright. I don't know, man. What changes do you want to make in the world? What would you like to see? Something real, man. Oh. Alright. Neon lights smeared across the evening streets of Gotham City. Few cars were on the road at this hour, and all Bruce could hear was the rush of pavement and wind, the sound of his car tearing down the freeway. That's what drew him to machines. They followed algorithms, not emotion. When Bruce pushed his foot down on the pedal, the car only responded in one way. Somewhere behind him, he could see the headlights of paparazzi attempting to follow him. Bruce allowed himself a cynical smile and edged the speedometer higher and higher. The world blurred around him. A harsh beep rang out in the car, followed by an electronic voice. "Speed not recommended for this road," it said, and at the same time, one corner of the windshield lit up with recommended speed and a blinking marker telling Bruce to slow down. "Override," Bruce replied. The alerts faded. He could feel the car lock itself tighter in position on the road, so that if he seemed to be even slightly shaky, the car could compensate by steadying itself. At least Wayne Tech's features were working as they should, he thought darkly. Lucius Fox would be happy to hear it. The car's phone rang, echoing in Bruce's ear. When he glanced down at the caller ID, he saw that it was Diane. Bruce let it ring a few times before he finally answered. Diane's voice filled the car along with the din of the party behind her. Bruce? She shouted over the noise. Where'd you go? I saw you step away with Richard, but then I heard you left and... I did leave, Bruce replied. What? Are you okay? That was Harvey's voice, anxious. I'm fine, Bruce reassured them. Don't worry, I just needed to get some air and clear my head. There was a pause on the other end before Diane spoke up again. Do what you need to do, she replied, and if you need us, Harvey added, we'll head to you. Bruce relaxed a little at their words. The three of them had all gotten to the point where they could sense each other's moods, so that none of them needed to explain a thing. They just knew. Thinks he hung up. He had no idea where he was driving to, but after a while he realized he was taking a long route back in the direction of the manor. Bruce exited the freeway onto the local street, passing rows of dilapidated apartment buildings, their walls permanently stained with decades of water and filth. Clothes hung simply on lines strung from one window to another. Steam billowed up from vents. He swerved neatly through traffic and then made a sharp turn at an intersection where he paused at a stoplight. Outside his car window, an old man was crawling into his makeshift tent, while at the other end of the block, another man was stuffing old newspaper into his shoes. A pair of kids played in an alley piled high with trash. Bruce looked away. He shouldn't be here, and yet here he was, driving through the slums in a car that probably cost more than a person living here could earn in a lifetime. Did he have a right to ever feel sad with everything he had in his life? These were the streets that his parents had fought all their lives to improve, and they were the same streets. That's because you're a fucking billionaire. You're a money hoarder, Bruce Wayne. You are the problem. These are the streets his parents fought so hard all their lives to improve, and they were the same streets where their blood had been shed. Bruce took a deep breath as the light turned green and he revved his engine. Gotham City was broken in many ways, but it wasn't beyond repair. He would find a way to fix it, and it was the mantle he had been handed. Soon the streets changed back to unbroken streetlights and unbarred windows. The paparazzi were slowly but surely gaining on him. He didn't throw them off now. They would end up parked outside his mansion gates, fabricating tabloid headlines for why he left the party early. Bruce's eyes darkened at the thought, and he sped up until the car's warning beep went off again. It wasn't until he reached another series of stoplights that he heard the echo of police sirens. Bruce wondered for an instant if the sirens were for him, the police busting him for speeding. Then he realized that the sound was coming from somewhere up ahead, not from a single vehicle, but from what must be dozens. Curiosity cut through his dark mood. Bruce frowned as he listened to the wails. He had spent enough time following criminal cases on his own that the sound of sirens always made him sit up straighter. For this area of the city was an upscale shopping neighborhood. The sheer intensity of them seemed out of place. Bruce took a detour from the route that would have taken him back towards Wayne Manor and instead headed in the direction of the sirens. As he rounded another bend, the wail suddenly turned deafening, and a mass of flashing red and blue lights blinked against the buildings near the end of the street. White barricades and yellow police tape completely blocked the intersection. Even from here, Bruce could see fire engines and black SWAT trucks clustered together, and the silhouettes of police running back and forth in front of the headlights. Inside his car, the electronic voice came on again, followed by a transparent map overlaid against the windshield. Heavy police activity ahead. Alternate route suggested. A sense of dread filled his chest. Bruce flicked away the map and pulled to an abrupt halt in front of the barricade right as the unmistakable pop, pop, pop of gunfire rang out in the night air. He remembered the sound all too well. The memory of his parents' deaths sent a wave of dizziness through him. Another robbery. A murder. That's all this. That's what all this is. Then he shook his head. No, that can't be right. There were far too many cops here for a simple robbery. Step out of your vehicle and put your hands in the air, a police officer shouted through a megaphone, her voice echoing through the block. Bruce's head jerked towards her. For an instant, he thought her command was directed at him. Then he saw that her back was turned, her attention fixed on the corner of a building bearing the name Bellingham Industries & Co. We have you surrounded, Night Walker. This is your final warning. Another officer came running over to Bruce's car. He whirled an arm exaggeratedly for Bruce to turn his car around, his voice harsh with panic. He warned, "Turn back now. It's not safe." Before Bruce could reply, a blinding fireball exploded behind the officer. The street rocked. Even from his car, Bruce felt the heat of the blast. Every window in the building burst simultaneously, a million shards of glass running down on the pavement below. The police ducked in unison, blah, 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 their arms shielding their heads. Fragments of glass dinged like hail against Bruce's windshield. From inside the blockade, a white car veered around the corner. At top speed, Bruce saw immediately that the car was aiming for him. A slim gap between the police barricades where a SWAT team truck had just pulled through. The car raced right toward the gap. "I said, get out of here," the officer shouted at Bruce. A thin ribbon of blood trickled down the man's face. "That's an order." Bruce heard the scream of the getaway car's tires against the asphalt. He'd been in his father's garage 1,000 times, helping him tinker with an endless number of engines, from the best cars in the world at Wayne Tech. Bruce had watched in fascination as tests were conducted on custom engines, conceptual jets, stealth tech, and new vehicles of every kind. So he knew whatever was installed under that hood was faster than anything the GCPD could hope to have. They'll never catch him, but I can. His Aston Martin was probably the only vehicle here that could overtake the criminals, the only one powerful enough to chase it down. Bruce's eyes followed the path of the car would likely take, his gaze settling on a sign at the end of the street that pointed towards the freeway. I can get him. The white getaway vehicle shot straight through the gap in the barricade, clipping two police cars as it went. No, not this time. Bruce slammed his gas pedal. The Aston Martin's engine let out a deafening roar. The car sped forward. The officer who had shouted at him stumbled back. In the rear view mirror, Bruce saw him scramble to his feet and wave the other officer's cars towards both, his arms held high. Hold your fire! Bruce could hear him yelling, Civilian in proximity, hold your fire! The getaway car made a sharp turn at the first intersection, and Bruce sped behind, and a few seconds later the street zigzagged, then turned in a wide arc as he led towards the freeway. And the night walker took the on-ramp, leaving the trail of exhaust and two black skid marks on the road. Bruce raced. Bruce raced forward in close pursuit. His car mapped the ground instantly, swerving in a perfect curve to follow the ramp onto the freeway. He tapped twice on the windshield, right over where the night walker's vehicle was. Follow him, Bruce commanded. It was a feature meant to make it easier for two cars to caravan with each other. Now a green target highlighted over the white car, and the Aston Martin's voice spoke up. Car locked on. A small map appeared on the corner of the windshield, showing exactly where the getaway car was in proximity to Bruce. No matter how much the white car tried to escape now, it wouldn't be able to shake him. Bruce narrowed his eyes and urged the car faster. His entire body tingled from the rush of adrenaline. Override, he said the instant the car tried to get him to slow down. He snaked between cars from one lane to another. The Aston Martin responded with blinding accuracy, knowing exactly when he could cut into a narrow space and how fast he needed to be. Already, Bruce was catching up to the Nightwalker's car. The Nightwalker knew it. The other car started to cut wildly back and forth. The few vehicles still on the freeway swerved out of their way as they wove between lanes. The spotlight flooded Bruce and the freeway in front of him. He glanced up to see a black chopper flying low and parallel to their chase. Far behind him were the flashing lights of the GCPD cars, but they were a distant sight, getting rapidly smaller. What the hell am I doing? Bruce thought, in a feverish daze, but he didn't let up on the gas. Instead, he leaned back and floored the pedal. His eyes were fixed on the swerving white car before him. Just a little more. Bruce was so close now that he could see the driver look back and glare at him. The white car swerved around the truck carrying a load of enormous pipes, forcing the driver onto Bruce's lane. The Aston Martin beeped a warning as it automatically veered to the side. Bruce yanked the steering wheel sharply. For an instant he thought he would hit the side of the truck, but his car slid into the lane by the barest of margins, a perfect fit. In this moment, in spite of everything, Bruce felt invincible. even natural, his focus narrowing in on nothing but the sight of his target and the thud of his heart. Over, Overhead, the voice of the chopper, or his megaphone, called out to him, "Pull over!" It shouted, "Civilians, stand down! You will be arrested! Stop your vehicle!" But Bruce had caught up to his target, almost there. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel, hoping his calculations were correct. If he clipped him in the rear correctly, the Nightwalker's car, speed and friction would probably flip him. It ends here. Alfred's going to kill me. Bruce patted the steering wheel once. His heart twisted for an instant at what he was about to do. "Sorry, sweetheart," he murmured to the Aston Martin. Then he sped up. The car tried to stop him this time. He felt the resistance in the steering wheel against his move. "Alert! Collision ahead! Override!" Bruce shouted, then rammed his vehicle into the back of the Nightwalker's car. The crunch of metal slamming into metal. Bruce felt a shockwave ripple through his body as his neck whipped sideways and he was hurled in an arc, his seatbelt cutting into his chest from the force. The other car's tires screamed against the pavement, or maybe that was Bruce. He wasn't sure. He saw the vehicle flipped, momentarily airborne. The world streaked around him for an instant. He caught a glimpse of the driver's face. A man, his eyes wide, his pale skin dotted with blood. The white car crashed upside down. Glass exploded out in all directions as the metal frame crashed into a gnarled mess, even though Bruce knew as he shook his head groggily that everything must have taken less than a second. It felt like he could see the metal twisting section by section, the million individual splinters of the windows cutting through the air. Police swarmed the white car, their rifles pointed directly at the driver inside. He looked conscious, but if barely. "Don't move, Nightwalker!" An officer yelled. "You're under arrest." Bruce felt another wave of dizziness hit, and one of the officers approached him, shouting angrily. Bruce heard his car issue a voice call, alerting Alfred as well as sending his coordinates to him and the police. Bruce's guardian answered the first ring, voice tense and frantic. "Master Wayne! Master Wayne!" Alfred, Bruce heard him say, could use a pickup. He couldn't understand what Alfred said in reply. He wasn't even sure if he could hear Alfred's words. All he remembered was slumping in the seat and the world going dark. And that's where we'll stop. Have a good day.